All right, let's get right into it. You know that person, right? The one who treats their birthday like it's just another Tuesday? No party, no big deal, maybe they don't even bring it up. While the rest of us are counting down the days, they just seem totally baffled by all the fuss. Well, it turns out this isn't just some random quirk. It's actually a peek into a really fascinating psychological mindset.
So yeah, that's the big question we're tackling here. A birthday or just another Tuesday? Why are some people so completely indifferent to a day that others treat like a national holiday? What is really going on inside their head when they just kind of shrug off their own special day?
You know, our first instinct is usually to jump to some pretty negative conclusions, right? We think, oh, they must be sad, or maybe they're just antisocial, or, in denial about getting older. But the psychological reality is way more interesting and honestly a lot less negative. It points to things like being internally validated, seeing time in a totally different way, or just being really smart about conserving their energy.
And that right there is the key. This is the whole point. How someone handles their birthday isn't just a little personality quirk. It actually tells us something really deep about their entire inner world, how they process their own identity, social expectations, and even time itself.
Okay, so let's break this down. First up, the identity from within. This first big reason is all about where they get their sense of self-worth. So there's this psychological term for it, internal locus of identity. It sounds complicated, but all it really means is that their sense of self, their feeling of significance, it's all generated from within. They don't need other people or social events to give them proof that they're important. And this quote just nails it. They don't need the annual reminder that they're significant. Think about it. A birthday is basically society's way of giving you a big thumbs up, saying, hey, we see you, you matter. But if you've already got that solid sense of self, that yearly pat on the back just feels, well, kind of redundant. And you can really see the contrast when you put them side by side. External validation, that's all about the social rituals, right? The birthday messages, the attention, the cake, the whole performance. But internal validation, that's built on something much quieter, like self-knowledge and real authenticity. And it's not just a theory. Studies actually show these folks tend to score way higher on authenticity scales. They're not putting on a show for anyone, they're just living their life. All right, so that's the first major piece of the puzzle. Now let's move on to the second part, which is about time without milestones. Because this mindset isn't just about identity, it's also tied to a totally different way of experiencing time.
Okay, here comes another one of those fancy psychological terms, low temporal landmark salience. All that really means is that they tend to see time as a continuous flow, kind of like a river, instead of a road with a bunch of mile markers. To them, a birthday is just an arbitrary date on the calendar. It doesn't hold any special weight.
See, for a lot of us, birthdays are these big, important milestones. They're neat little boxes to measure our progress. But for people wired this way, personal growth just doesn't work like that. It happens gradually, a little bit every single day, not in big 365-day chunks.
Which brings us to our third and final section, and this one is super practical, the social energy budget. Because let's be real for a second, birthday celebrations require a ton of what's called emotional labor. And make no mistake, it is labor. It's work. You have to perform, you have to engage, you have to manage everyone's feelings, and for some people, that is just absolutely exhausting.
I mean, just think about the checklist. First, you got to manage everyone else's expectations about how excited you're supposed to be. Then you have to perform gratitude, that big smile for the sweater you're never going to wear. And on top of all that, you have to navigate all these tricky social dynamics. It's a whole production. And honestly, some people would just rather not buy a ticket.
Now, it's really important to understand this isn't about being antisocial. The better term is social selectivity. Think of it like this. They have a limited amount of social energy in their budget, and they'd much rather spend it on deep, genuine connections instead of obligatory rituals. It's actually a super healthy way of setting boundaries.
So what happens when we put all of these pieces together? Well, we get a complete and, frankly, very logical psychological profile. This isn't about someone being broken or sad. It's just about being wired differently.
So here it is, the complete profile. You've got internal validation, a sense of continuous time, and a really selective approach to social energy. That's the trifecta that explains this whole behavior.
And this is probably the most important thing to take away from all this. This isn't a flaw. It's not a bug.
It's a totally valid and psychologically healthy way of moving through the world. They're not ignoring their birthday because they're unhappy. It's because, to them, it genuinely just doesn't register as a big deal.
So, the next time you run into someone who treats their birthday like it's no big deal, you'll have a much better idea of the pretty complex psychology that's likely at play. And that kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? What other social rituals that we take for granted might be revealing the hidden gears of our own minds?